A good neighbor to me is just that, like making it just a little bit easier on your neighbor. Getting back to just looking out for your neighbor's best interest as you would want them to look out for yours. Um, I think that would reduce everybody's needs so much if we just cared about the person to the left of us and to the right of us. There wouldn't be such a need for organizers to go out and try to save the world.
Hi, it's Tish Taylor with the Good Neighbor Podcast with concerned citizens of St. John. And today we're sitting with Mr. Gregory Swafford. And we'd like to talk about how wonderful it is to actually be an out coordinator and do, outreach and to talk about responsibility, social responsibility.
Well, I'll start off with introducing myself. My name is Gregory Swafford. I was raised in New Orleans. I came up just largely examining the social conditions of people in my community. Long before I even knew that social conditions were at play, I would just observe and take note at different things happening in my neighborhood, across my city. Some of the questions I used to always ask myself was, you know, why are certain people doing well over here? Why do certain people look like this that live over here? Why do these communities have this and mine doesn't? And that happened for a good part of my childhood. And I think once I became of teenage years, I started hearing about how different factors were at play. But even then, in my teenage years, I didn't really understand the full magnitude of American history and systemic racism and internalized trauma and all of these other things that are factored in and baked into how Black people live their lives every single day, particularly in the Deep South, and specifically in New Orleans. So I just, around the age of 27, 28, I just kind of committed my work to figuring out how I could use the gifts God gave me to uplift my people's voice, elevate our interests, and organize around us getting equity.
So, what inspired you? What exactly? When was that point of,
Yeah,
I'm going to make a difference?
I think in 2019 I had took a delayed route with finishing college, but I finished college in 2019, and I was fortunate to get a job working at an accounting firm for a brief moment in time, and I started making decent money for the first time, consistent money, and it was good. And this happened for about 9 months. I was doing my thing, and I would get my check and go hang out and go to the bars and the lounges and enjoy New Orleans life for the first time, having a couple of dollars. I'm 28 years old. And, you know, I guess at the conclusion of, after you spend your money on a weekend, like, and you got to go back to work the next day, after about 6 months there, it just didn't feel the same. Like it didn't, that same passion that I had for the job on day one just wasn't there. Just shortly 6 months after I started the role, and the money didn't feel the same as it did when I first started the role. And fortunately, we all got sent home to work from home because of COVID-19 outbreak. And I'm sitting around my house one day in Gentilly. I was living with my mom at the time. I had moved back home, and I went outside to get some fresh air, and I was frustrated at how dirty the park was. And I just didn't understand why the park was dirty, why it had plastic bags, cigar wrappers, condom, you name it, plastic bottles, everything. And I went out there and I cleaned it up, and I made an Instagram post about it. And the response I got online was pretty much on par with what I thought I would get, people in outrage. But, that's the thing. Like, we always post videos and we always talk about the problems, but when it's time to do the solution, there's nobody there. When it's time to organize and everybody come out and actually do the work, people just want to comment. And so after the excitement of the online post wore off, it was time I realized that I could no longer be somebody that's just examining the social conditions in my community, but that it was time to, like, organize a action. And the compounding thing that was happening at the same time was George Floyd had just got murdered. So around the city, a lot of people were protesting and doing demonstrations in their own respective way. So my demonstration was hosting a community cleanup. It wasn't in marching and protesting. It was like an action, and the action was to demonstrate like we're gonna take care of our community. We're gonna do this action right here. We're gonna organize. We're gonna do this action, and we're gonna raise awareness of us talking through working. And I started doing that, and we coupled that with Instagram and putting it on like Instagram and social media, and we started getting like I started getting a really positive response from people I knew, people I didn't know, and that's how my activism started and my organizing started at that point.
So who inspired you to move forward with this?
Uh, I think me. I think my mentor, myself, and my mentor, and my partner, Sage Michael. He was starting his advocacy. Well, he was already advocating for a lot of things over the years, but I think when he initiated an effort on Lincoln Beach, which was a historically black beach in the city of New Orleans, pre-segregation. When he launched the initiative to bring the beach back into commerce, I connected with him shortly after, like weeks after or months, maybe a few months after he started cleaning up out there. And I called him one day to, ask for some advice and support because I came across him on social media. He invited me to a cleanup one day, and then we just kind of started working together from there. I would invite him out to cleanups, he would invite me out to cleanups, and I think we just started feeding off each other's energy over the years. Whenever something would come up, I would be out there to support him and vice versa. And throughout that process, I think he and I met a lot of people who would ultimately like kind of just shape the work that we doing today. And so I would say he was a huge influential factor. And I think because of the age gap, he brought me into a generation of people that lived in the city that I lived amongst every single day that I didn't have access to because of just where I was at in my age. So I think his contacts became my contacts over the years, and with that, I gained so much wisdom and knowledge and understanding about our city. So I probably have to give it to him.
Sage Michael.
Sage Michael.
Well, thank you, Sage Michael. We
Yeah.
appreciate you. I've met him. He's amazing.
Sage is
And his
all
passion
right.
for Lincoln Beach, he really impressed my dad, because my dad actually, they would have bus rides from St. John Parish to Lincoln Beach because it was the only black beach.
That's right.
So, it's a real serious historical place for all of us and most of the community, like you said, before they just kind of just threw it away, and that's the way it was.
And it was the integration, and when residents started going to Pontchartrain Beach is when
Right.
we left that beach. And Sage's respect for Mr. Taylor and all the other elders in our community that want to walk that shoreline again is his fighting reason for being out there every day. And for me, that was inspiring because it was like, we got a tangible superhero in our community that a lot of people overlook, or don't understand the value and significance of what it is that he's fighting for. And over the process of the last 5-6 years, to organize and advocate to raise $25 million for a beachfront in New Orleans to be restored wasn't an easy effort. And that those are the real tangible things we see in our community. And so, I got to be amongst him in certain meetings and just hanging out with him, or having side conversation about it, or just in the background. And I learned so much about my city government and how I could affect change. And I've just been doing it in my cool, unique millennial way.
Oh, we need that so desperately. We need to inspire the millennials and all of the gens that come behind.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. And what I loved about just meeting you, you just were like so relaxed in what you do. And when you have that passion, when you find that in yourself, I have this passion for community, it just kind of, the energy is there. And when it's so important that we share that it's okay to move forward, that you can make a difference in just one person. Because when you make that step to do this one thing that's great, you will find a flurry of other people who will come and support you and bring you, like you said, into a whole different realm of advocacy
That's right.
that you never thought that you would even imagine. And that's the thing about it. And it's so important for us in St. John Parish and really along the river parishes because, we with Concerned Citizens of St. John and different advocacy groups, we're just learning about environmental justice. We're just stepping up to defend ourselves against what's bad for the community. But we also have to understand that every person has the same voice. My dad didn't wake up one day and become something that he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
It was already in him.
Sure.
He just decided that I don't care how big it is, I have to do something.
Sure.
And you did that. You
And,
say, I'm going to clean up my own community
yeah.
because we are the stewards of our community. That's the whole point of being a good neighbor. This podcast is about explaining how you, as an individual person, can change your whole narrative, starting from your home, starting from there, and then working your way outwards.
Started with cleaning up behind your toilet, making your bed, washing your face, ironing your clothes. Mr. Taylor's an inspiration to me because just at his age to have the level of energy he has, to want to travel, to still advocate, to not be afraid to voice his thoughts. He doesn't hold back. That's what I aspire to continue to have. As life goes on, because life got a way of beating you up and wearing you down, and to be at that ripe age and to want to still fight and be involved in the thick of it in the trenches with the comrades is commendable. For me, like the power of one was this phrase that someone shared with me back in 2020, and the premise of it was just understanding that one person can impact and affect so much change with their voice. And as I mentioned earlier with Sage Michael, or I see that with Mr. Taylor, or even myself, I've realized that you don't need as much as you think you need. Oftentimes, folks get so caught up in the I don't have what I need right now, and that keeps them from getting to step B, C, and D. And what I learned is I have to continue to build a parachute while I'm jumping out the plane. And as you jump out the plane, or in the case of your advocacy work, as you put out your call to action, you may not have everybody or all the resources you need in place. But if you walk steady in that faith along the path, one person over here and one person on this side of the street, I got this. I'll make this phone call. Let me bring this over here to you. And then it'll come together, and it always happens. But the trick is that you can't see it.
Yeah.
You can't see it. You have to believe it, and you can't fake believe in yourself. You gotta know that you that person to get it done.
Yeah.
And so once you walk with that level of certainty, what I find is if I think about it long enough and I want it bad enough, it'll come to me.
Yeah. And you just have to move. You
Yeah.
have to keep moving. Because A is where we want. And then we want to say, I have this passion for something. Can somebody else help me make it happen? When you got to go out and you got to really just promote it, promote yourself and your passion. They have to see that you're willing to take the steps that might be a little scary,
Yeah,
but necessary.
yeah.
I love that.
My
So tell
generation
me,
don't look like looking goofy.
well, you know,
You know,
look at you. You got that flair. So, I mean, I'm ready to dress up as Mother Nature, as Sister Nature, okay? Well, I'm ready to go back to the 70s hippies right now. Whatever it is, as long as you are comfortable in your own skin, none of the rest of that matters,
yeah.
you know?
It's interesting you say that. I would have never thought I'd be an organizer or an environmentalist. I thought my calling was in finance or, something entertainment related. I played basketball in college. I played basketball in high school. But when I realized that don't make my profession don't make me cool, I make the profession look cool.
Hey.
And so, I like to say, I mean, I don't communicate it publicly, but I guess I could say it like I make environmentalists look cool. You know, I
Oh,
make community organizing look cool. I bring, as black people, that's what we've always done historically. Like we bring the flair to the profession. Like Tiger Woods made golf the thing,
yeah,
you know, or Barack Obama made the presidency look good, you know, and that's how I feel like my role in this work is to also recruit and usher in the next generation by leveraging coolness. Like let's just be real about it. Like
yeah,
we gotta use everything God gave us.
yeah. And we have it.
Yeah,
We've always had that
always have
flair.
had it.
Always have it. And we just got to know how to work it.
Yeah,
I agree. And don't let anyone else put a lampshade over us and tell us it's not right because it doesn't fit in the little box. You just got to be you. And that means goofy. Okay, I'll be goofy. You have the flair. I'll
I
be goofy.
I'm goofy inside the house, but my outward persona is very like.
Low key.
And you know, I try to weave in a little bit of goofiness in my professional life, but it always gets taken out of context. So I just rather just kind of stay mellow.
Well, to stay in the lane. I know that you came. I had what I called the environmental dream team when we started canvassing because it was wonderful. And I'm going to be inviting Michael as well as Eloise
Beautiful,
to our podcast because I
beautiful.
want to speak with them all individually about their passion. How did you start working with Healthy Golf?
My work through Healthy Golf so Sage Michael was brought to Healthy Golf, I believe, through Michael back in 2022 or 20, yeah, it's 2022, and Michael and Sage Michael were there for a period of time, and you know, I was running culture of cleanliness again, like just wanting to continue on with that mission, working solely in New Orleans around different things, and I would work with Sage Michael on things. At times, we sat on a few coalitions over the years together, but I had a son in 2022, and I had left New Orleans for a period of time to move to Washington D.C., where I gained a whole nother level of interest in life. But you know, I had asked Sage Michael one day on the beach. I'm like, yo, how's the healthy golf thing going? And he like, man, it's swell, man. You know, man, it's a remarkable opportunity. You know, and so, in so many words, he just had nothing but great things to say about it. And you know, I kind of left it at that. And then one day I seen an opening opportunity available for an organizer, and I thought that I would go for it. I thought that I met the qualifications. I thought that I had what it took, and I went after it. And it didn't work out for me immediately. Some things that transpired in between before I actually began at Healthy Golf. Between when I first applied and when I actually started at Healthy Golf was like close to 2 years. But even in that period of time, it was just really like a testament to how committed I am to the work. Because generally, if people don't get a job after the first try, they'll just go off to something else. Yeah. I had moved to Washington D.C. I was doing some other things up there and learning and still like still staying in tune to the issues happening in Louisiana and in New Orleans. And my current supervisor reached out to me and asked me to come in and interview again, and I did, and I got the role, and here I am today with and it's been a hell of an opportunity because my advocacy now is outside of New Orleans. I have regional influence, and I can make regional impact now across the state. And the relationships that I've just built in and around Louisiana has been able to amplify my work and allow my work in New Orleans to blossom even more.
Yes. So tell me about Healthy Golf. Tell me about the
Yeah,
organization
so
itself.
Healthy Golf is about 30 years old. Started in 1994 as the Golf Restoration Network. After the BP oil spill is, I believe, when they transitioned the name to Healthy Golf from the Golf Restoration Network. But our work is in 5 states: Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida, and is where we have staff. And we work on a number of issues from wetland protection, holding the industry accountable. We have we have policy staff, we have scientists, community scientists, we have organizers, we have we have like not an in-house legal team, but we have like a legal arm, And I think for a small team of about 16 people, we do some really impactful work that's recognized all over the United States. And I think I think like we have like we're one of the most passionate environmental groups, I think, arguably in the South.
Okay.
Yes, it's a really diverse team. We have women, African Americans, Caucasian folks, folks with a range of different skill sets and backgrounds. And it just has really developed into a really diverse organization just in the last year and a half since I've been there. We've brought on new team members, we brought in fellows, we bring in interns. So I think Healthy Golf is really like a resource in the community for a lot of people who are looking for their entry into environmental work. It's been that for, I mean, probably hundreds of people at this point have come through Healthy Golf as an intern or as a fellow and have went on to work in federal government, international organizations, local organizations, going into government. So it's really like a great launching pad for those who are looking to just really advance their careers professionally in environmental work.
Yeah. I work a lot with Mr. Scott Eustace. He was one of the first organizations he came representing them,
Yeah.
and he was all about air monitors and doing a lot of work in the Gulf with the water and pipelines and,
Yes.
and everything. And so, I mean, he just was, always brought great work to us
Yes.
and information to concerned citizens, to the people who were just starting out in advocacy.
Yeah.
He was one of the major players
Yeah.
when it came down to helping us.
So at Healthy Golf, we hold industries accountable. So we're holding this petrochemical industrial complex accountable for making sure that they're not violating federal law, local laws, that they're going through the proper procedures to obtain permits. We challenge permits that they may apply for in the event that we think that they may have skipped over something or they're not taking something into consideration. We're heavily involved in the liquefied natural gas, the methane battle down in coastal Louisiana and Cameron Parish and Plaquemines Parish, and wetland protections down there, again, in Lafourche Parish, Cameron Parish, Calcasieu, Plaquemines, Terrebonne, all of these waterways down there in southern Louisiana that have thousands and thousands of abandoned oil wells that are uncapped or that are leaking methane into the environment, or oil spills that may happen. We just on top of it, just bringing the latest science and the best news and advocacy, and using leveraging our partners, whether it's in media or other organizations or advocacy groups working in coalitions to keep the people informed and to constantly like kind of keep our foot on the bureaucrats to do the right thing.
Yeah, when I think of Healthy Gulf, I think of pipelines and waterways.
Yes.
That you're making sure that everything is in compliance, that
Yes.
they're not poisoning the waterways as
Yeah.
as best as possible.
Yeah, as best as possible, man.
Calling them out.
Calling them out, and when I think about like how much it takes to really do this, all the relationships that the organization has been able to build over the years with our partners that we get in a plane and fly over the wetlands, or the boat captains down there in the coastal parishes that we partner with to go out on the water and examine what's happening after an oil spill, or the community groups in the different parishes. We have to rely on so many people so we can do our work every single day, and and you got to do good and honest work for the community to keep wanting to work with you over the years. And so that's like a core unspoken thing at Healthy Golf of always coming in, at least from an organizer standpoint, like keeping the community's interests first, allowing the community members to lead and what they want to see in their community, and we just coming in behind and supporting anywhere we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as a community and an outreach coordinator, what is your title?
Southeast Louisiana organizer.
Southeast Louisiana organizer. So You just go to a community and see who's working in it and just partner with them, or just
Yeah,
how do you?
no. I think, well, what happens is, this started long before I got to this role. Healthy Golf has had partners that it's been working with for years now. And so when I came into the role, the landscape was already laid out for me. So there were facilities and pipelines that Healthy Golf was already battling or had won or collectively won with the other groups. And so when I came in, we had needed a person that was gonna fill in the gap between pretty much Baton Rouge all the way down to the coast. And so, you know, the groups like yourself and Rise St. James and the Descendants Project, all of the partners that we work with over across the state, all the way to Lake Charles, was kind of where the focus is and the issues that you guys are dealing with in your respective communities and neighborhoods, and and same for all the way down the river, partnering with these groups. And I think also, like, outside of already established groups, what the most important thing is raising up new voices of people who aren't organized yet, or have an inclination of something not being right in their community, but just don't know where to start and how to navigate it. That's the case right now in parts of Plaquemines Parish, where I'm working with residents who aren't necessarily an environmental group or an advocacy group, but they have complaints and concerns, and they just need a little bit of direction. And so I think over time we can help them get there, and I think that's the role Healthy Golf plays in that.
That's good. It's so important to pull community in, and the link between people with all the information that can stand behind you if you just actually step out.
Step out.
And the community has to do that. And so, when it comes to that, I really want to work with you guys. I want to work with community organizers specifically for concerned citizens, and pretty much for all of us environmental justice fighting for our lives, that we need to understand that we can empower our youth to do the same.
Yeah.
That we need to try to find a way where we can stimulate that interest
Yeah.
in what's going on, and to empower them in a way where they don't feel like this is too big, this is too much. As we grow as an adult, like what we say, we are adulting. We got bills to pay, we got things to
Right,
do, we
right.
gotta, we got to punch the clock. But in essence, what we want to cultivate is leaders.
That's right.
We want to cultivate leaders who don't always fit in that little box of reading, writing, and arithmetic,
Right.
but are entrepreneurs, are people who can actually be self-starters, and we need to be there to offer them opportunities, and for them to see someone like yourself who started off even with going to college and studying and getting your degree,
Yeah.
and working in the finance or in accounting, but still turning right back around and being somebody right in your own community and
Man,
saying, I got to change my neighborhood.
I thought it was ass backwards. I thought it was ass. I'm like, man, I could have just left high school and did this. But there was a value to college, and I agree with you. And I think how we do that is incentivizing. I didn't know that this was a path at all for anybody in Louisiana. I didn't know that this was a profession, if you want to call it. In our community, we got to fight through so many stigmas of, like, if I'm out here helping my community, I can't get no check for it. Like, I can't take what I make and go feed my family off it. Like, it's not genuine. It ain't real at that point. I'm a snake oil salesman at that point.
Oh my God.
But those are the things that those are the invisible things that I have to fight through in this work with my own community at times. To help, I got to get it in through people's head that, this is how other communities community build. Like, they do work that's tied to their community, and one hand washes the other. And we got to just have a real conversation about that, this has been able to help me sustain myself as a black man who has a son who has bills and responsibility, but it's also a win for the communities that I work with, that I call family. And let's just be real about it. And I think once we are able to make that connection and not look at it as it's some sort of like demonic plot, because you're doing work in your community and you're being compensated for your time, I think that it would like reduce the reluctance of people wanting to get into our work or learn more about our work, things of that nature. But I also think children have to be exposed, and there has to be the resources to incentivize kids to do this, because we need experts in the community that are going to come and guide, and they need to be compensated for their time, and they should do part of it for free, and part of it they should be compensated for their time. So these are the programs that, just as a community, I feel like residents in St. John and St. James Parish should rally and get behind. That's what we have to do to get our kids involved, because we just can't ask everybody to always volunteer their time. No. We can't. No. And we got to know that we competing out here with people who have real money and real agendas that are trying to pull our kids' attention away. Absolutely. And we got to be honest about that.
Absolutely. You know, it's sad when it's stigmatized, when we are actually, I've had people say, oh, y'all out there for the money. Oh, what money? But if I'm working tirelessly, I mean, I'm connected to that laptop. Right now, I'm missing, Lord knows how many things. You know, you don't understand what goes on behind this. We're not just somebody who just shows up and stand up and makes a statement. This is work, and it's passion, and it's emotionally exhausting, because you know that the people who you are fighting for are sometimes the ones who see you as somebody trying to take something from them instead of trying to add quality of life to them. And it's so important for them to understand the difference between exploiting people, which the petrochemical industry does, and actually advocating for our own health and safety and for our future. And that maybe I should be compensated for that. We as people need to understand that if you find something that you're passionate about and it actually does help, what is wrong with that?
That's everybody what I'm trying to figure out.
Everybody has a gift. Finding that gift, I've changed careers a few times in my life. Shifting, life shifts you different ways, but it also molds you to find more and more about who you are as a person. And the more you find out who you are, then it should come to a place where you go, I really like this. I really am angry about this. I really am happy about this. And I need to put more energy into something that's more specific to what I can do. And if I saw someone else come in and just say, well, I have all of this, but my passion just went straight to my whole community. My front yard need to get rid of these plastic bottles, people just throwing their trash out or whatever. I can actually do something about it and have a career in it. And I can bring a whole new generation of people just like me to the forefront, to stand alone, change the cultures, change the trajectory of people who are tossed away to believe that they're just going straight to jail if they don't fit into that script of what they're supposed to be. My dad always wanted to train electricians, plumbers, refrigeration people, framing. He's self-taught. And he always felt like whoever came through his house, musicians, whoever it was, that it was his job to nurture their gift and help them to be able to become independent on their own. And that means you can either work for yourself, you can work for someone else, but it's doing something that is already innate. It's already something in you that you brought out and that needs to be nurtured. That's what he did. We've got to do that. We've got to stop creating this image where everyone has to be sports athletes or rappers or things that are so far out of reach for the average person that they're hopeless.
That's right.
And I think something as so simple as caring about the community that you're in.
Yeah.
I think that's where we need to create millionaires and billionaires.
Barack Obama um, 45th, 44th president of the United States, was a community organizer. That was his job title before the Senate. He was a community organizer. Today, post-presidency, he has a net worth of $400 million, $200 million. And that's not the point to highlight what his net worth is, but it speaks to, you know, you have a better chance of being president of the United States than making it to the NBA. You have the better chance of becoming the council person in your town than making it as a superstar rapper. And if we just sit down and pull out a pen and paper, if we did the simple math, and put the math in our favor, put the numbers in our favor for success, we can do simple math to put the odds on our side for the outcomes we want in life. Success is planned, you know, so just put the numbers in your favor. You know, I'm a community organizer today. It doesn't mean I'll be one forever. I think I'll always call myself a community organizer, but God will exalt me in due time. But this is I'm on a mission, and this is the assignment that He has for me right now, to be a servant to my community. And once my job is done here, then I will be promoted by God to the next step. But you know, in the meantime, between time, embrace the title you have, because you make the title don't make you.
Yeah.
You know, again, a community organizer is cool because I made it cool.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's a little arrogant, but we'll run with it. It's a little cocky.
Self-confidence and arrogance are two, you know, that you can play with either.
Self-confidence.
6'7". I've been looking for a way to use that. I've been looking for it. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's the 6'7" thing. But I mean, come on now. If we don't believe in ourselves, then we don't really go as far as we could. You know, how can we say that Gregory guy? He is amazing. You know, if he didn't show and actually have that air about him in the beginning. So
well, I feel the same way about you, Tish. You know, I enjoy hanging out with you, and I always enjoy being in your company and our conversations. I think it's just you and I both have a zest for life at two different ages. I think we just both have a zest for life, and you know, you just. I mean, it's so much to be excited about. I mean, you know, for the people that we get to work around every day, with all of the fires that happen every single day that we hear about, you know, we still have so much to be joyful about, you know, when the fact that the weather changing and just hanging out and smelling the crisp air outside, and, you know, just being with people that have this passion and interest in, you know, they can shoulder some of your burdens just at the end of the day with a conversation and give you some thought and perspective. It's so many things that on a nuanced level, like we can find so much gratitude and joy around, and that's what makes life so good to me. It'll never be the direct deposit or the garment that's on my shoulders or on my feet. Like, it's always about the people. We gotta always keep that in mind. Like, it's always about hanging around good people, getting the opportunity to learn, sharing, eating good food, being amongst each other, doing work that matters to us. Like, life is more simple than it is complicated, and I think we gotta get back to making it more simple.
Yeah. So as a Swafford, and I grew up with Swaffords in Reserve, in the big city of Reserve, Louisiana.
The one horse town.
My classmate John and I, well, we went all through elementary school with most of your uncles, and I'm going to tell you, John's probably he's the barber, so he cut every little boy's hair that you could imagine in the community, and he had his own stage as well.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, you find that passion, and then to actually walk through Mount Airy and find your connection with Mount Airy. So man, you're a country boy. When you know, we're Mount Airy people, you know, we stick together, and I just appreciate so much the idea that you would just say, I'm gonna come and walk with you, and to meet people, to see your face when you met
your
dad's godmother.
Yeah,
your dad's godmother. We're knocking on doors.
That was beautiful.
That was, I mean, just to experience that with you growing up in New Orleans and not having that direct connection with the generations before your dad.
Yeah.
You know, I thought it was just wonderful, and I love to see that in everybody.
Tish, I gotta thank you for that, because that was real. You know, and that's what it's about, and that's the stuff I'm saying about, like, about like we just got to connect with real stuff, like real things that give us perspective. I couldn't have said that was planned. That was just, that's just alignment. You know what I'm saying? When you walking in God's path for you, you're gonna be brought back to these places, and He's gonna reveal Himself to you. And so that was just another installation of that happening. And again, that those things and those moments just helped me connect with the work even more on a cellular level. Just understanding that, man, these are people that I'm kin to, that are being unjustly treated, oppressed. And why it bothers me is because it really make me feel played. I really feel like these people playing with me when I see and that's what gives me my fire, honestly, if I'm being honest. Like I feel like you playing with me, because when we look at the lineage of family histories all around the world, you see this family did this and they were prominent in this industry and dominated for generations and years. And it's a little frustrating to me when I see parts of my history that had to deal with so many things unjustly, and I see where I fall into the place of world history of how all of these families broke down and that lived in this community in this part of the United States. Like, and when I see all of that, it makes me frustrated. It makes me angry, and But I also know that, man, there was some great people that came from some powerful people that came from our neck of the woods and Louisiana in general, but I know that history is being suppressed. So I use my social media to highlight a lot of those stories. Case in point, Oscar Dunn, who was the first African-American governor in the United States, was born in New Orleans, and a lot of people don't know that. And this man helped advocate for integrated schools post-slavery. This is in the 1860s. He got integrated schools in New Orleans with taxpayer-funded money, working at the Freedmen's Bureau, helping newly freed slaves not enter bad labor contracts with former plantation owners. He started the People's Bakery, cooperative economics. So a lot of times the establishment and industry and all this whitewashing will wash out the history of great people that came through our communities, and so we don't know about them. No. But these people, man, we come from a long line of phenomenal people, and I think that, I stay up at night scrolling, researching, and I come across so many things about my history that, I just got to share with the world. Like, I got to use every little tool I have to combat this BS that they got going on, this narrative that they got going on out here.
Well, it definitely is a distraction. And I do believe that actually, when you're scrolling, to actually be selective about what you look at, to follow the right things, because there's so much in the world that we can be exposed to. And if we can just find a way to share, I love sharing Black history stuff.
Sure.
As much as possible, because somebody might just pop up on it and that might make someone else follow and say, I didn't know that. We just now went to, we were just now at the foot of Canal Boulevard, and I was like, I think our Black governor's buried over here in this cemetery.
Cemetery number 2.
Yeah, and my brother was like, Black governor? And I was like, pick it up. Let's just go see who he is.
Yep.
Nobody knows about that.
Yep.
They bury everything about us. They bury our past. They bury who we, and by doing that, it doesn't give us that sense of hope that we should have, that sense of pride and self-confidence.
Right.
Because we don't see ourselves as the people who built this country and who created so many things. And that is where we need to enlighten people. Mm-hmm. And social media has everything is there at our fingertips. We just need to choose what to scroll selectively.
Yeah.
And so just to add that to our feeds, to add that to hopefully our podcast, to understand that we did some powerful things and we still are. We're just not at the forefront. And nobody's telling our stories. So we have to share them.
There's a gentleman turning plastic into gasoline that I showed you the other night.
I know.
All of the Black elites should be pooling their money behind this guy.
Yeah.
We should be funding our thought leaders.
Yeah.
The enemy is funding thought leaders to come and talk to the minds of youth whose brains are still forming, and helping push an opinion on them. And as people, we have to also understand the importance of supporting our thought leaders, our visionaries, our innovative thinkers, our next geniuses, and putting our own capital behind them so they can continue to develop technology, so they can continue to push their thoughts out into the ethos and atmosphere. And if we love our leaders, we can't just share their posts. We got to go put money behind them.
I agree.
Cash, money. And that's at all levels of our community.
But it start with them even knowing about it. So how do we teach it?
We gotta, man, you know, man, we gotta just, we gotta get. I don't do drugs. I don't drink alcohol. I read, and I'm not saying that I'm a saint, but I had to really change my life to get different results.
Yeah.
And once I started, and I'm talking about a real process, one that at the time on this podcast couldn't even make up for. But I had to really change my genetic code to start seeing things differently, and how I spent my time, and who I'm around, and what I'm taking into my body, the food I'm eating, what I'm watching. Like, it's such a hard transformation in order to just get to ground level zero to begin to see clearly.
Yes.
You know,
Process.
and all of the internal battles that you got to deal with to just get to that point. You know, some people never even get to that point because, you know, life is so consuming at times. But it's really helped me because I bought back so much time when I gave up so much other stuff. And when I bought back that time, I'm like, I got this time, I don't know what to do with it. Like, let me go research something. Let me go do this. Let me go create some content. And I think just that actual act of always wanting to go do something, and I can't go do this, so let me go do something. I think it's just developed my brain so much to where, like, I'm conscious of what's going on or what I may need to know about out there. And I think that the start is like getting back to the basics, telling our kids don't do drugs, leave the alcohol alone. Like, obviously getting involved civically and asking, demanding that our tax dollars be spent in parks and recreation, and taking some of it away from our police budget, and funding mentors to come into our communities. You know, so I think the government can do a big part in this, but the key to it is you got to know what to ask the government, and you have to know what to ask your local municipality, and you have to have a plan to follow through on it, and understand that it's not going to happen overnight. But I think with your municipality, with relationships in your community, we can help turn the focus of our youth on the things that we know is best for them for positive outcomes. But it's a generational push, and it requires so much work, and you can't ask your community, you got to ask yourself if that's what you up for doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
Yeah.
Ask yourself.
Had to ask yourself.
Ask yourself. But we have to start doing that. But we have to figure out how we can get our children involved in all of this. Gregory, I mean, this has been amazing. Of course, I knew it would be. You know, it's so important that we talk about being an organizer, and how wonderful it is, and the connections that you can make between organizations and advocacy, and the work that's being done. What do you consider a good neighbor? What would a good neighbor look like to you?
Man, a good neighbor to me is, you know, a good neighbor to me is just that, like taking care of, helping, making it just a little bit easier on your neighbor. Getting back to, you know, just looking out for your neighbor's best interest as you would want them to look out for yours. I think that would reduce everybody's needs so much if we just cared about the person to the left of us and to the right of us. there wouldn't be such a need for organizers to go out and try to save the world, because there's one person, you got a person taking care of you on your left and your right, the world will be solved tomorrow. And I think we got to continue to push that into the ethos and atmosphere. So I think that's what's being a good neighbor, just taking care of your neighbor to the left and to the right of you.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on the Good Neighbor podcast. See you next time.